men, and I use the term loosely. Diving into the Rat Rod No More project again. Frame is back from powder coat, as well as all of the other parts I sent out. Crankcases are together, cylinders are bored, heads, valve job is done. Quite a lot of this is ready to be put back together again. Just a heads up on a couple of things. I did a video about a couple of frame comparisons. Well, this is one of those frames. And my concern was I had a butt weld over here holding the backbone to the neck forging. And I don't like, butt welds for frame tubes. So what I ended up doing is getting the old Makita and a cutoff wheel out, cut a slot 1/4 inch wide down the top of the neck, cut another slot 1/4 inch wide on the bottom of the neck. Into that slot I shoved a piece of 1/4 inch steel. I welded it from here to about here, and the same on the other side from here to about here. I shaped this little gusset here to blend into the existing forging, and of course welded it all the way around. And I've quadrupled probably the amount of weldment between this frame tube and this casting and the rest of the neck. So it's welded here, and it's welded along the gusset. I think this is a lot stronger, and I'm very glad I did it. Next up on this thing, I've got to undo my plugs and stuff. I put a couple of big washers on the neck over here to keep the sandblast grit out of inside the frame and to keep the powder coat out of the inside of the bearing cups. I've got to take that off. I've got some other plugs going across the frame, threaded rods with washers to block off the swing arm pivot and the brake crossover. We're going to pull those out, and the other thing I'm going to do is down here where the engine attaches to the frame, we're going to take this down to bare metal so that the engine is hard on the frame rather than sitting on 30 thousandths of powder coat. I'll bring it back when there's something to show you, but in the meantime I'm going to get to work. I got a lot to do. I'm going to shove the engine in this in a minute or two, and I'll bring you along for that. A couple of things to note maybe. The kickstand. Most guys don't worry about that until last. I've gotten in the habit of doing it first because the kickstand is on the bottom of the motor. If you've got problems with the bushing or the hole or the kickstand or the pin, now is the time to get after it, not after the bike is done and the engine is covering us all up and in your way. So I do the kickstand first. The number two thing I do is the swing arm, because this, theoretically, you could do it while the engine is in the frame. And what you would do is you tighten this nut down until it's just starting to push the bearing out the other side. The dust shield and all that basically has to be flush with the edge of the swing arm. And then, of course, you could shove the swing arm into the slot, with this snugged up against there, and this nut over here will line up with the slot on the engine to keep it from turning. So theoretically, you could do a swing arm while the engine's installed, but it's just easier to do it before the motor's in. So yeah, we're gonna. Well, and of course, if you're gonna do the swing arm, then you got to do the shock mount. So the shock mounts are in, and on this bike, the fender brace is in. And let's take a look at the fender brace. This obviously is not the stock fender brace. If you like this kind of style, great. If not, well, then this bike ain't for you. The owner is getting the fender painted, and I did a little finagling with the fender mounts, and I put some spacers welded to the inside of the fender so the fender follows this arc more closely. And there were a couple of holes in here. I filled them in with weld, and then I took actually a belt sander to this whole thing to make it smooth, and very happy with the result on this. This brace back here was cracked in two places, and this chunk in the middle, it was just floating around. So when the fender comes back, it'll just slide in from the back. It's got two holes to secure it to this fender strut, and the holes are reinforced on the fender, so I don't think cracking is going to be a problem. So anyway, fender braces on, but let's shove the engine in this thing. I'm going to be an old man, and these engines are heavy. That's pretty close. These are pull noodles, and actually, the guy who owned the Schoenbeck GT turned me on to doing these. I've occasionally wrapped cardboard and foam around there, but pull noodle is actually a pretty good thing to do. It works well. Close, but yet so far. Not quite sure what the hang-up is here. Something's binding up a little bit here. I'm just glad I'm not fighting the whole 250-pound motor. I think I got a thread or two started over here. No, this one's in, that one's not. It's off by like a 32nd of an inch. It looks like maybe the swing arm nut is hanging up. Yep. No, not quite. Yeah. I think I see what the problem is. There's that little ledge that the motor mount sits on by the two bottom bolts. And I think I got to get it up over that so that it will come back. Yeah, I think that's got it. Yeah, 3 bolts are started. Let's see if this last one starts. That one is not. Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. You know, I chased these holes too before I shut the engine up in there. I'm gonna take this out. Nah, that's close. This is the second attempt to stuff the engine in here. The memory card filled up during the middle of the last attempt. How much of it I got, I didn't get out of it. We'll see that later. But anyway, I measured the distance between the holes. It jives up with the motor mount. I don't know what the deal is. Anyway, going to try it again. You know, I like the electric start engines better because the electric start pump makes a nice handle. Something that sounds like it's hitting hard. And it appears to be the swing arm nut. Well, the one that wouldn't start before it started. Let's see if I get the other 3 in now. Two bolts are started. I'm going to put a little chamfer on these bolts. All right, grab the little chamfer on these bolts. That's it. And that one started. Cool. Fuck, I see something I don't like at all. Damn it. I think this motor's got to come out again. Son of a bitch. This bolt is getting hard to turn. And there is ever the slightest gap in here. Maybe a 32nd of an inch. And the motor mount is hitting the frame like up in this corner before the motor mount hits the flat part of the boss over here. So I think I got to conclude that this motor mount is a little fatter than the other one was. So the engine's not sitting up against the mount. Fuck. You know, I didn't check this engine mount before I bolted it to the engine, but I could see a little problem right here. I got to get in there with a marker or something and try to figure out how to tell where to file or grind a little metal off. This is getting to suck. I'll bring you back when I got something else to show you. Okay, there's kind of two problems going on over here. One is the bolts barely line up with the bolts in the engine mount barely line up with the bolt holes in the frame, but they do line up just barely. The other problem is this: when I get the bolts in, I start to tighten them. This part of the frame is a little bit proud of this flat area that the motor mount bolts to. And you can see I've filed the powder coat off of there to make sure that it goes in flush all the way. I think, you know what, let me get the old motor mount. I want to see something. Okay, here's the old nasty motor mount. Well, see, and here's the problem. The old nasty motor mount doesn't want to sit flat on here. Oh wait, maybe it does. Okay, it does. I don't know whether I should file some material off of the motor mount or whether I should file some material off of the frame. Yeah, this one doesn't want to sit flat on there, and I'm not sure. Well, you know, the problem might be is because it's sitting on this little hump over here. Let's see. I think I'm going to take some material off of this motor mount, the old one, and see whether that makes any difference or not. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I don't know how well this will show up in camera, but this area here, I just filed the corner off of that. This area here was rubbing this area of the frame, and this area of the frame is a little bit proud of this mounting boss. If I do the same thing to the new motor mount, I think it will clear. Okay, this motor mount, the old one, rocks on the frame. Okay, it should be perfectly flat, but it's not. And the problem is this thing is so fucked up. This area has got a ridge around it. This area has got a ridge around it from rubbing on here. This area has got a ridge from rubbing over here. These two bottom mounts both have, you know, worn areas because it was loose. The reason this one is being shit canned is because it was cracked in the usual place where they all crack. Not particularly a big deal, but it was also cracked over here. So there'd be another weld on there if I were to fix it. And the inserts were gone, and somebody fished nuts up in behind there to hold it on. So You know, these are not that expensive, so this one's going away, and it's got the new one on it. So I don't know. There must be a little variation, or you know, who the hell knows what this frame has been through in its 50 years of existence. But we're gonna grind a little bit off of the new motor mount right up in this area here, and we're gonna try to stab the engine in for the third time. All right, this is the area I took off with the Dremel tool. This Sharpie mark and this Sharpie mark I made while the engine was in the frame, on either side of the part that was hitting. So hopefully third time's a charm, and that'll do it. We'll see in a moment. All right, going in for the third time. Fucking thing. Man, I've never had an engine fight me like this. Two bottom bolts are started. I had to go put a little chamfer on this bolt too. All right, back at it. I probably spent the next hour wiggling, jiggling, prying, pushing, squeezing, trying to get all the mounting bolts in. And I just could not get them to go. It was painful. It really was. I had never run into a problem like this with the motor before, but clearly something was wrong. All right, cocksucker's coming out again. I think the engine is hitting the swing arm. This is the swing arm that came off of it. But I think the engine is hitting the swing arm. Jesus. What a ball buster this thing is. Fuck. Out it goes. Back later. Okay, bear with me. See this chip right here? This is where the swing arm was hitting the engine. Well, swing arm's powder coated. I don't want to take a grinder to it. The engine's the engine. I really don't want to take a grinder to the engine if I don't have to. But you can move the swing arm a little bit one way or the other. And see if you could, bear with me while I try to explain this. The bearing cones are seated against the frame by the big bolt that rolls through the middle. The cups face in on both sides. I could move the cups one way or the other by loosening and tightening these nuts. So what I did was I loosened this nut on this side like 2 full turns. I loosened it quite a bit. Okay? Yeah, and it's still loose. Then I went over on the other side and I tightened the big nut on the other side. And what that does is it's pushing the whole swing arm to the right. How much do I need to push it? I don't know, 50, 60 thousandths of an inch probably. How far can I push it? I could push it until this part of the swing arm starts to rub on the frame. And when I get in and look from, inside here, I've got room to play with. So I can move it even more to the right. And I think I'm going to do that. For purposes of this demonstration. I got my big wrench. And I could feel the resistance of the bearing cups sliding along in there. And that's why I say when you put this together, those bearing cups are a very light press fit in these ears because they need to be able to move in case you need to move them. Now I still see a pretty good gap between the swing arm and the frame. So I'm not binding up here at all yet. As a matter of fact, that feels pretty good. I'm going to squeeze, tighten this big nut down a little bit more. And I think I'm going to call it good to go there. I probably put 2 full turns on it. And what's happening now is the big nut is sinking below the surface of the swing arm. So pretty soon it's going to push the socket wrench off, which is why I say when you work on these things, you should grind or machine the end of your socket flat, because most sockets have a chamfer in them and you don't get a good bite all the way. But if you machine it flat, then you get a good bite until you run out of nuts, so to speak. So I'm going to tighten up the spanner on this side and then snug it up from the right side. And this is why doing quote-unquote live videos, I mean, you won't see it live, but I'm trying to do this on an actual work in progress. And things don't always go the way you plan them. Okay, this is starting to get snug right now. And it's in a position where I can't get the spanner where I want it. I need some more holes drilled in this thing. Maybe I'll get a little bit more out of it. But I might be able to get on it one more time here. No, not quite. But that's okay, because I could tighten this nut by tightening the nut on the other side. I'll be shoving everything, the bearing cups, up against this nut when I tighten up on the other side. So hopefully I got another, I don't know, half a turn or whatever on here before the wrench gets shoved off of the nut. That's pretty tight. Swing arm still feels real good. All right, so I think I'm going to move the camera back around over here and try to shove this engine in for, I don't know, the fourth time, the fifth time? Way too many times for an old man like me to be picking up an engine, let me tell you. I just tighten the axle bolt. All right, fifth time is a charm. Let's see what happens. All right, well, here we go again. I'm getting tired. It's getting late. This is going to be the last shot on this thing. Looks good so far. I'll pull the needle back in there. First bolt in. Second bolt is started. I think it started. Actually, it looks a little crooked from this angle. Oh, nice. Going in, I can get it, I can turn with my fingers. All right, so that problem is fixed. See if the bottom ones go in. Goes in with my fingers. Oh, nice. Goes in with my fingers. Okay, all the bolts are started. So let's snug up a couple of them and see what happens. Nice. The motor's pulling up and it's closing up that gap. Beautiful. The bottom bolt on the other side, I'm able to spin it freely in. This bolt, just a little bit snug, but basically, well, hell, I can almost turn it with my fingers. So everything all of a sudden is lined up. So I put a lot of engines in, and I've never run into this particular problem before. And in a way, to me, putting an engine in would be a pretty boring video, you know? You put the bolts in, you tighten them up, and away you go. But here, this one really presented some interesting challenges that I don't usually encounter. And, I don't want to sound too academic here, but this, these are all going in nice now. Everything's going in good. I don't want to sound too academic, But this really was a kind of an interesting learning experience uh, for me, hopefully for you. But you work on these things and you never know what kind of problems you're going to run into. You never know. Uh, you never know. The swing arm on this bike, it had struts on it. It didn't have shocks. So the swing arm was locked down and it didn't move. So whether it was rubbing before or not, I couldn't say. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. All right, the battery just crapped out. So I don't know whether you missed anything or not, but what I was talking about is this, and I don't want to sound too academic, but putting a motor in is not particularly interesting until you run into a problem. And this one ran into some problems that proved to make it a very interesting learning experience. I could have talked all day long about how you can move the swing arm left or right, but until you actually had to move it for some reason or another, what would be the point? Well, now there's a point. If you got a motor that won't go in because it's hitting the swing arm, you can now move the swing arm a little bit one way or the other. Anyway, motor's in, motor mount bolts are tight. Let's see if the swing arm still moves. And it does, and it doesn't hit anything. So this is, I hate to say it, perfect. It was rough getting there. I only hope I had pressed the record button when I needed to, and I hope the battery didn't run out until, until I made some sense out of all this. But yeah, I am very happy now with the way this has gone in. It's really, really, I got just a little clearance over here. I got clearance on the swing arm side. The engine's not rubbing on the swing arm anymore. And it's sitting here on its pull noodles, which you don't need anymore. And with that, I am done for the night. I'm going to come back and hit it some more tomorrow. And in the meantime, I'm taking a break. See you guys a little bit later. Just a quick reminder, you can help support and grow this channel, first of all and most importantly, by hitting that subscribe button. So if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to do a little more, join me on Patreon. Links down below. So go ahead and join me on Patreon if you feel so inclined. And finally, coffee cups, stickers, and gas tank covers are available. This is a new design coffee cup. I like the old ones, but I like these new ones even better. And to go along with the new design coffee cup, there is a new design sticker. Links will be provided in the description down below. Coffee cups and stickers are included with the Patreon membership. And thank you all ever so much for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. Bye.